He was the boy from the slums everyone believed would change the world. Brilliant, quiet, full of dreams. But when poverty cornered him and pride whispered lies, he made one choice that shattered everything. This is the true cost of chasing acceptance. This is the price of belonging. Ajagunla breathed poverty like oxygen. The narrow, potholed streets bustled with life. Okadas weaving through shouting traders, smoky suya grills on every corner, children barefoot and laughing through dust. Amidst the noise stood a boy named Ezekiel Okafor, known to most as Zeke, 17, slim, sharp-eyed, and carrying the quiet weight of his world. His home was a cramped two-room apartment with peeling paint and a rusted zinc roof. The ceiling leaked during rainy season, and their foam mattress sagged from years of shared sorrow. His father, once a civil servant, now lay silent and paralyzed from a stroke, staring at the ceiling with empty eyes. His mother, Mama Nkechi, was the strength of the family, selling okrika at Boundary Market from sunrise to dusk, her hands calloused but her prayers unshaken. Zeke didn't own much: a cracked phone, a few books with bent spines, and a stubborn belief that his mind was his way out. He studied by candlelight, sometimes reading through the night when Nipa failed them. His notes were scribbled on old newspapers. He'd stopped asking for new exercise books. He knew better. One afternoon, the miracle came. A cream envelope with gold-embossed letters. "Congratulations, you have been awarded a full scholarship to Grand Oak College." His mother screamed and knelt, praising God through tears. Neighbors danced outside, banging pots. But Zik? He just sat beside his father, holding the letter like it might disappear. He had won a ticket out of Ajagunla. But no one warned him that belonging could cost everything. Zik arrived at the gate of Grand Oak College like a shadow among giants. The school was everything Ajagunla wasn't: neat, polished, silent, except for the hum of well-trimmed lawnmowers. A black and gold gate rose above him, flanked by security guards in neat uniforms. Students strolled past in ironed white shirts, pleated skirts, leather shoes that gleamed. Their laughter was crisp, their backs straight, their accents foreign. Zeke stood there, in a uniform slightly faded from washing, carrying a second-hand school bag his mother had sewn at the corners. His shoes were rubber-soled and clean, but cheap. The stares came fast, curious, amused, sometimes cruel. He found his way into the main hall, where a giant banner read, "Grand Oak, where leaders are shaped." The air-conditioned hallway smelled of citrus and wealth. There were lockers with fingerprint scanners. He heard a boy say, "My driver forgot my iPad again." Another girl asked, "Should I order KFC or sushi after school?" Zik walked past them like smoke. Then came Jeed Benson, the boy who would change everything, tall, light-skinned, with a fade haircut that looked freshly done. He wore a designer polo, had a gold chain over his collar, and shoes so clean they didn't look touched by Lagos dust. He eyed Zeke from head to toe and smirked. "So, this is the scholarship genius from Ajagunla?" Zeke forced a smile. "I'm Zeke. Ezekiel." Jeed chuckled. "Doesn't matter. Around here, it's not what's in your head that counts. It's what's in your pocket." Zeke laughed quietly, but deep inside, something cracked. He had entered a world where being smart wasn't enough. He'd have to pretend to be someone else. And for the first time, he began to wonder how far he'd go to fit in. Zike's lies started small, quiet, careful, the kind you tell yourself before you tell the world. On his second week at Grand Oak, someone asked where he lived. He replied, "Maryland." He didn't even know why. Maybe it was easier than saying Ajagunla and seeing the smirks. The lies grew slowly. His father was a businessman recovering abroad. His mother owned a boutique. They believed him, and for the first time, Zeke felt seen, not as the poor boy with cracked sandals, but as someone who belonged. He saved every kobo his mother gave him for food. After school, he walked from Ikoyi to the mainland just to avoid spending on transport. He used that money to buy second-hand sneakers from Yaba, ones that could pass for designer if you didn't look too closely. He downloaded an iPhone interface app on his Infinix to make it look like he owned one. In class, he laughed at jokes he didn't understand, used slang that didn't feel natural. He started calling Okada's bikes, called his mother Mumsy when he spoke in front of others. Only Kamzy noticed. She came to visit one day holding Eva Agoyan in a nylon bag, just like old times. Zik met her outside the school gate, anxious, looking around. "You're acting different," she said. "I have to," he muttered. "This place isn't like home." She stared at him for a long time. "No, this place is fake, but you're real. Or at least, you used to be." Zeke looked away, because deep down, he wasn't trying to be real anymore. He was trying to survive. It happened on a Friday. Zeke had just finished class when Jeed slipped a silver car key into his hand. "Lecky party, real crowd, don't dress like you're still in church." Zeke hesitated. He had never been to Lecky. His plans that evening were to fetch water, cook rice, and help his mother fold okrika. But the way Jeed looked at him, like this was a test, made him say yes. That evening, Zik lied. "We have a school project, Mama. Group assignment. I'll be late." His mother kissed his forehead, grateful. "Keep making me proud." He felt sick. Jeed picked him up in a black Benz that growled with arrogance. Zeke had never been in a car like that. The leather seats, the smell of imported perfume, the music vibrating through the speakers. It all made his body feel too small. The party was in a Lecky mansion, all white marble and glass. Inside, it was chaos. Flashing lights, girls in tiny dresses, boys in branded shirts throwing money in the air, red cups everywhere. Zeke stood frozen near the door, overwhelmed. Jeed tossed him a drink. "You need to loosen up, Ajagunla. This is how we live." Hours later, Jeed took him upstairs to a quiet room. Laptops glowed on a long table. Boys his age typed fast, laughed louder. One screen showed chats with foreign women. Another showed crypto transfers. "This," Jeed said, eyes shining, "is the real game. Yahoo! Romance scam. Real money, fast." Zeke's throat dried. His hands trembled. He looked at the screens. The noise outside faded. All he could hear was the war inside his head. What if this was the only way out? The hospital bill was 14,000 naira. His father had developed a terrible cough. The local nurse said it was getting worse. His mother tried to smile through it, saying, "We'll manage." But her eyes were wet when she thought he wasn't looking. That night, Zeke lay on the thin mattress in their room, staring at the ceiling. The sound of generators from neighboring streets buzzed faintly. The air was hot. Mosquitoes hummed. His cracked Infinix phone glowed beside him. He opened Telegram. There, buried in a sea of unread messages, was a link Jide once sent. Black tables. A private Yahoo forum. He clicked. A faceless profile named Shadow sent a welcome message. "Smart boy, you ready to change your life?" Zeke hesitated. Then he typed, "Yes." Within minutes, Shadow sent PDFs, voice notes, video guides, scripts for romance scams, step-by-step tutorials on how to gain trust, create fake profiles, convince lonely people abroad to send money. "Start small," Shadow said. "Make her believe you're in love, then strike." Zeke created his first profile. Mark James, a U.S. soldier deployed in Kabul. He used a stock photo. Blue eyes, uniform, sad smile. He found a woman in Canada, recently widowed, lonely. He started chatting. "You remind me of home. You make the war feel distant. You're the reason I smile." 3 weeks later, she sent $400 through Western Union. Zeke used a third-party agent to cash it out. That evening, he handed an envelope to his mother. She cried and called him a miracle. Zeke smiled. But later that night, he went outside, knelt beside the gutter, and threw up everything inside him. Zeke became two people. In Ajagunle, he was still Ezekiel, the quiet boy who fetched water, bought kerosene, and helped Mama and Kachi wash clothes behind their zinc-walled compound. But in Grand Oak, he was Zik the guy. Trendy, slick, AirPods always in. His walk slower, his laugh louder. He bought a pair of fake Air Jordans, then a used pair of AirPods, then a wristwatch that looked expensive from a distance. To his classmates, he had blown. The scholarship boy had leveled up. Nobody asked questions. No one cared about the details. He played the part well. Only Kamsi still watched him closely. She barely spoke to him these days, but when she did, her eyes said everything. She saw the change, the distance in his smile, the tiredness behind his eyes. "Where's the Zeke who used to read under candlelight with torn textbooks?" she asked him one day after school. "He evolved," Zeke replied flatly. She shook her head. "No, he disappeared." Meanwhile, Ivy, soft-spoken, graceful, started spending more time with him. She wasn't like the others. She noticed the little things. She laughed at his dry jokes. She made him feel seen. "You're different from them," she said. "You think deeply." Zeke smiled. But he didn't tell her where his new clothes came from, or how he stayed up at night, typing sweet lies to strangers, pretending to be a soldier, a widower, a successful businessman, whatever the script required. He was drowning in identities. Every lie brought more money. Every deposit made him feel safer. But every time he looked in the mirror, he saw less of himself. It was supposed to be a normal evening. Zeke had just finished withdrawing another payment, 120,000 naira, scammed from a woman in Texas. He tucked the cash into a brown envelope and made his way to a rundown apartment in Ikeja, where his fake SIM cards and devices were hidden. But as he turned the corner, Kamsi was there. She had followed him quietly. She didn't speak, just stood still, arms folded, eyes burning. He froze. "What? What are you doing here?" She stepped forward, her voice shaking. "Is this who you are now?" Zeke tried to lie. "It's not what you think. Don't." She cut him off. "You told me you were trying. You told me you were different." "I am trying," he snapped. "You think this is easy? My father is dying. My mother works herself to the bone. I'm tired of being the poor genius everyone claps for while we starve." Her voice cracked. "So you scam people? You become the thing you hate?" "I became what I had to," he said bitterly. She shook her head, tears running down her cheeks. "One day you'll look in the mirror and not recognize the monster staring back." She walked away. He didn't stop her. Later that week, a scandal broke. Grand Oaks Charity Club funds, over 300,000 naira, had gone missing. An anonymous tip led to a burner email. Zeke's burner. He panicked, deleted everything, switched SIM cards, burned notebooks. Then came a chilling message from Shadow. "One of you is exposed. Cover your trail, or you'll be the one they sacrifice." Zeke's hands trembled. He tried to call Jid. No answer. The school assembly hall was unusually quiet that morning. Zeke sat in class, heart pounding, pretending to read. Outside, whispers spread like wildfire. Rumors, half-truths, pieces of a puzzle falling into place. Then came the announcement over the loudspeaker. "Ezekiel Okafor, report to the principal's office immediately." The entire class froze. Some turned, others gasped. One or two smirked. Zeke stood slowly, legs unsteady. The hallway felt longer than usual. As he walked, he saw students leaning out of their doors, some whispering, some recording. At the gate, two men in plain clothes were waiting, police officers. "Are you Ezekiel Okafor?" He nodded. "You are under arrest for internet fraud. You have the right to remain silent." Handcuffs clicked over his wrists. Gasps erupted. Phones came out. Flash after flash. He looked up and saw Mrs. Oho rushing toward him. "This is a mistake," she cried. "This boy is brilliant. He's one of ours." The officers ignored her. In the crowd, he spotted Ivy. Tears streamed down her face. He turned and saw Kamsi. She stood still. No tears, no words, just pain. But what hurt most was seeing Jeed watching from the balcony above, sipping a drink, smiling. The van doors slammed shut behind Zik. The last thing he saw through the barred window was the gold-lettered school gate disappearing in the distance. For the first time, there was no act left to play. He wasn't the genius. He wasn't the fraud star. He wasn't even Zeke anymore. He was just broken. The handcuffs were tight, too tight. Zeke sat silently in the back of the police van as it rumbled past familiar streets. His palms were sweaty. His throat was dry. Through the tiny barred window, Lagos moved around him like it didn't care. People laughed, traded, lived, while he sank. They arrived at a station in Iquicha. The walls inside were stained with rust, sweat, and forgotten cries. Zeke was led past screaming suspects, harsh officers, and dim corridors. In an interrogation room, a stack of printed documents sat waiting: chat logs, account statements, voice notes from Shadow. An officer stared at him with tired eyes. "You? A scholarship boy? The shame." Zeke said nothing. What could he say? That he did it to help his family? That he was drowning and no one saw? That night, he was tossed into a holding cell with 4 other boys. One looked like he hadn't eaten in days. Another had bruises around his eyes. No one spoke. Zeke sat in a corner, knees pulled to his chest. He didn't sleep. He didn't cry. He just stared at the wall, wondering if the version of him that once solved equations under candlelight had ever really existed. The next morning, Zeke sat on the cold bench in the visitor's room, wrists cuffed to the table. His uniform was damp with sweat. His eyes were red, not from crying, but from the storm inside him that refused to rest. Then he saw her. Mama Nkichi. She walked in slowly, as if her body was dragging behind her spirit. Her wrapper was poorly tied, scarf slipping off her head. Her eyes, swollen, exhausted, broken. She stopped when she saw him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "Zeke," she whispered, barely able to say his name. He looked down. "I don't understand. You were doing so well," she said, stepping closer. Her fingers trembled as they reached through the gap in the bars to touch his cheek. "I tried, Mama," Zeke said, voice hoarse. "I tried to fix things. For you. For Papa." "Fix things?" she said, voice cracking. "By becoming a thief? Is this what we prayed for every morning? Is this what your father lies helpless for?" Tears filled her eyes. "I was drowning," Zeke whispered, staring at the table. "I just wanted us to breathe." She closed her eyes, swallowing her pain. "Then you should have come to me. We've always suffered together. We don't lie, Ezekiel. We don't steal." The officer behind them cleared his throat. "Time's up." As she turned to leave, she paused. "You are still my son, but you are no longer my pride." Those words hurt more than the handcuffs ever could. The courtroom smelled of paper, sweat, and consequences. Zeke sat in the defendant's box, wearing a borrowed shirt 2 sizes too big, and trousers held up with a shoelace. His hands shook slightly as he gripped the edge of the stand. His mother sat in the front row, head bowed, hands clenched tightly. Behind her were journalists, strangers, bloggers, ready to devour every detail. The court clerk read the charges: cybercrime, identity fraud, unlawful financial transactions. Zeke's name echoed like a curse through the wood-paneled room. The judge, a stern woman with glasses and a permanent frown, watched him like a puzzle she had no time to solve. Mrs. Oho took the stand. Her voice shook. "He was one of our best students. Intelligent, thoughtful. He had a future most boys would kill for." She paused, voice cracking. "I don't know what happened." Then came Kamsi. She stood in the back. She didn't speak. But when Zeke's eyes found hers, all he saw was distance. He couldn't read her anymore. His lawyer, a young volunteer from legal aid, did his best. "My client is only 17. He fell into a trap. Poverty forced his hand. He needs redemption, not ruin." The judge said nothing for a long moment. Then finally, "Ezekiel Okafor, you were given a gift. Education, opportunity, community trust. You used it to deceive. This was not an accident. It was a choice. The sentence: 2 years in a juvenile correctional facility. A wail tore through the courtroom. Mama and Nkechi collapsed. Zeke didn't move. He just stood there, numb, hollow, and swallowed by shame. The correctional facility was nothing like the world Zeke had known. No whitewashed walls, no polished floors, just cracked concrete, rusted doors, and boys with eyes far older than their age. Most wore uniforms 2 shades too dull, faces bruised by a life that gave no warnings. Zeke's bed was a thin mat on a metal frame. The ceiling fan didn't spin. The air was heavy, thick with the smell of sweat, soap, and silence. They called him Yahoo Boy, not out of respect, but as a label, a mark. For days he didn't speak. He ate little. He barely slept. At night, he lay staring at the dark ceiling, remembering Grand Oak, Kamsi, his mother's trembling hands, and the sound of a gavel cutting his life in two. But life inside had its own rules. One evening, an elderly warden with tired eyes approached him. "Mr. Jato." "You can read?" Zeke nodded. Mr. Jato handed him a torn book. "Then start with this, and teach someone else." It began with 1 boy, then 2, then 5. Zeke wrote alphabets on broken chalkboards, taught arithmetic with bottle caps, helped others write letters to mothers who had stopped visiting. Slowly, word spread. They listened, and Zeke began to speak again. Not because he had healed, but because he had nothing else left to offer, except his mind. In that prison, where dreams went to die, Zeke found something fragile but real: purpose. While Zeke marked days on the wall with a broken pencil, the world outside barely paused. His name trended for a week. Then it disappeared, replaced by gossip, trending skits, and the next scandal. But in quiet corners, people still whispered, "That brilliant boy from Ajigunla. See where he ended up." Jeed Benson, untouched by consequences, continued his reckless reign. His father, a wealthy senator, had made sure Jide's name was never mentioned in the police report. The burner sims were blamed on Zeke. The Yahoo logs were conveniently wiped. Jide posted Instagram stories from pool parties, lounges, expensive resorts. "Pressure builds diamonds," he captioned one. But diamonds crack. 6 months after Zeke's sentence, a police raid hit a nightclub in Lekki. Jide was found with drugs, cash, and underage girls. His father paid again, hushed voices, moved files. But one night, after a dispute with fellow scammers over missing funds, Jide was stabbed. In a restroom, behind the music, in silence. He bled alone. He died before help arrived. Kamsi read the news in a newspaper folded on her lap. She didn't cry. She was teaching a small group of boys in Ahigunle how to use Canva and Google Docs. She paused only to say, "Choices don't disappear just because you delete them." From that day on, she added a new topic to her digital literacy sessions: the real cost of fraud. She never mentioned Zeke by name, but every word she taught was for him. The gate opened with a loud metal groan. Zeke stepped out with nothing but a small plastic bag, a toothbrush, a secondhand novel, and a letter of commendation from the warden. The sun hit his face like a stranger. It felt warmer than he remembered, too bright, too unforgiving. He stood there, blinking. Then he saw her. Mama Nkechi, older now, thinner, wrapped in her best ankara. Her eyes scanned him slowly, from head to toe, before she opened her arms. He walked into them. No words. Just the sound of breathing, a forgiveness wrapped in silence. They took a keiki back to Atagunla. The roads were still broken. The children still barefoot. The same neighbors stared, whispering behind open windows. That's the boy. The fraudster. The shame. He kept walking, head down. At home, everything looked smaller. His father's bed was still by the window, the same leaking bucket in the corner. His old books were dusty, untouched. He sat in the same corner he used to read in. It felt unreal. Days passed. He barely left the house. He helped his mother clean her stall, rearranged her wares, swept the compound. But he didn't speak much. He didn't smile. Then, one morning, a plain white envelope arrived. No stamp, no sender. Inside, a scholarship letter from a local tech institute, asterisk asterisk, and at the bottom, in neat handwriting, "You are not your past. I believe in you. I." He read it twice. Ivy. She hadn't forgotten. The tech institute was nothing grand. 2 floors, flickering lights, worn desks, and mismatched chairs. But to Zik, it was a cathedral of second chances. He sat in the front row, eyes sharp, notebook open, every word from the instructor landing like a seed in dry soil. He no longer studied to escape poverty. He studied to build something better, from the ground up. Slowly, he began to smile again. One afternoon, he saw Kamsi at a community event. They didn't hug. They didn't cry. They just stood under a mango tree, looking at each other like 2 people who had survived a war. She spoke first. "You look different." "So do you," he replied. Together, they launched a free digital skills workshop for teens in Ahigunla. Every week, young boys and girls filled the dusty classroom, some angry, some broken, all curious. Zeke told them the truth. He showed them screenshots of fake chats, told them how lies snowball, how fast money feels like power, until it collapses and leaves you cold. "I went to prison," he said, looking a boy in the eye, "and it saved me." Some didn't believe him. Some asked questions. But one day, a quiet boy raised his hand and whispered, "Uncle, do you think I can be better too?" Zeke knelt to his level. "You already are. You just have to choose it." Zeke walks past the gold gate of Grand Oak one last time. Not to belong, but to remind himself that he never needed their approval. He belongs to purpose now, and to those he can still save. The end. If this story moved you, please like, comment, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Do you think Zeke deserved a second chance after what he did? Is it ever justifiable to choose crime when poverty leaves no options? Have you ever felt the pressure to belong in a world that didn't accept you? What would you have done if you were in Zeke's shoes? Your thoughts could inspire someone else. Please subscribe so you don't miss more powerful real-life stories like this one. And remember, fast money fades, but character lasts forever.